Hello, I'm Daniel Raymond, and this is the last time I will be visiting a Costco gas station, perhaps forever. That is a weird feeling because in the last 7 years, I've made plenty of visits here with the process of using my 2016 Prius for over 16,000 rideshare trips and just approaching 270,000 miles. But today I'm going to be selling it for a whole lot more of its original value than I ever thought a car with over 250,000 miles would bring. But hey, that's today's used car market and a testament to how far taxi companies and others can push a Prius with engine and battery replacements and overhauls. I see second and third generation Priuses over 15 years old still being driven as taxis in the dry desert climate of Southern California. So this 7-year-old fourth generation Prius is kind of a spring chicken by comparison. But my lifelong pattern has been to buy cars new and then drive them so long as they aren't approaching those big expenses like engine overhauls and replacements. So in 2016, the Prius was the obvious choice for rideshare since the maturity of EVs, EV infrastructure, and EV incentives didn't exist yet. But they do now. And in addition, the new fifth-generation Prius, a very stylish beast, unfortunately has made some sacrifices for that stylishness. The rear seat headroom was reduced and the trunk space is smaller. Those are important metrics for the suitability of a vehicle for rideshare and taxi use. So I'm expecting, at least here where rusting out isn't a concern, that those second, third, and fourth generation Priuses are going to be pushed even further and further in taxi fleets. But I will be on a different adventure. I will be trying to do rideshare in this, a 2023 Tesla Model Y long range. And since all good ships must have a name, this is the electric blueberry. And I have decided to document both my experiences with the vehicle and my knowledge of rideshare in this channel. But one thing that a lot of content creators talking, or rather ranting about rideshare driving, is that you can't separate the experience and economics of rideshare from the local market that you're doing it in. For example, I've already mentioned the long lifespans of cars in a desert climate, but here in California we have Proposition 22, which heavily changed the rideshare economics, as well as the urban sprawl and particular psychology that is Los Angeles and Southern California. So, since I'm going to have to talk about LA, why not also have some extended musings about the place I've spent my entire adult life in? So that's this channel, EV Rideshare LA. 3 interrelated topics, 1 viewpoint. So let's talk about the particular decision to select the Tesla Model Y long range. Because while the Prius was an obvious choice in 2016, there are a lot of choices this time around in EVs. So first, why buy new rather than lease, rent, or buy used? Leases are categorically unsuited for rideshare. You will blow through the mileage allocation on most leases in a fraction of the lease duration when ride-sharing, and then you're paying heavily. Rental is good for certain situations, and I plan in a separate video to go into detail on my experience with renting a Model 3 for a week while the Prius was in the shop for repairs, which taught me a lot. Gave me confidence in deciding to go with an EV for my next purchase car. Buying used does save you money, but in the current car market and new car incentives and price wars, not that much. And my lifelong philosophy, as I said, has been to buy new, take good care of the car from the start, and then hold on to it long enough that the extra lifespan gained by taking good care of the car from the start will pay off over the lifespan. Second, what were my primary evaluation criteria in picking the Tesla Model Y? Well, principally net after incentives, price, and range. Plus, of course, the car had to actually be available rather than just in super limited supply. Most of the possible choices fell short in one or all 3 of the criteria. Price is obvious, but a lot of the lower-priced cars were more expensive after it became clear that they weren't going to get the full federal incentives. For example, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 was a strong contender until that was considered. Then came range. Range is king. Why? Why? Because high-speed charging stations are expensive. The cost per kilowatt is at least double of what I get with level 2 charging at home. I being fortunate enough to have a garage with a 50-amp outlet. Not only that, but time spent at a charging station represents rides that I could have been taking and not. This is what economists call an opportunity cost. I did an analysis of my 2002 travels, and by the way, if you're doing rideshare, adequate contemporaneous records of both your business and personal mileage are essential. Don't just rely on the rideshare company's records of the miles you drove, because that doesn't count the empty but waiting miles. For example, when leaving off a ride at the airport and then going to the holding lot. Anyway, on the days I spent rideshare driving, I drove an average of about 230 miles with a standard deviation of about 60 miles. I wanted a car that I could charge to 90% of the battery overnight, get in the car, and drive all day and come home with 5% of the battery, within average plus 1 standard deviation of my mileage, which the Tesla Model Y long range is pretty much there. Other cars that had that kind of range had an after-incentive price much higher. Now, on exceptional days, like the day I drove 407 miles, I will have to supplement with a little supercharging, but that will usually be late in the day and just enough to get home safely. Which also explains why I didn't get the Model 3. When making my buying decision, the Model 3 long range was a no-show on the American market, so it could have been a choice, but wasn't. Now, why didn't I get the 7-seat in order to be able to also take XL rides? Well, reviews of the third row of Model Y seats is that they're not suitable for adults. Most users wanting an XL are doing so in order to transport 5 or 6 adults of a party. They need a minivan, and the Model Y is not a minivan or even a full-size SUV. First rule of the service economy, and not just rideshare, don't disappoint your customer. Next, why spend extra for blue paint? Well, this may come as a surprise to the rest of the country, but the number 1 new car in California last year was the Tesla Model Y. And the number 2 new car in California last year? The Tesla Model 3. And the majority of all those 3s and Ys are white because, of course, that's the no extra cost color. And since white Teslas are so common, and they are, the possibility of 2 inebriated rideshare customers at the same bar or restaurant, both looking for a white Tesla and winding up getting in the wrong one, are higher than you would imagine. So, in my observation, the rarest color for a Model 3 or Y is red because it's the most expensive, followed by blue. So the blue choice was to stand out. Picking the white interior was also that it looked so clean and sharp, particularly with the blue exterior, and by all reports, not harder to keep clean. But if you do keep it clean, it looks really clean and really impressive. Now, this might not have been a wise choice. If I had instead chosen a black paint and black upholstery, the Model Y would qualify for Uber Black, which are expensive rides and allow curbside pickup at LAX rather than the LA exit lot. That's right. The only reason the electric Blueberry can't do Uber Black is because it isn't black. But customers picking up an Uber Black are expecting a true limousine-class luxury car. They would be expecting a Model S or Model X, not a Model Y, even if technically qualifying. And again, rule 1 of the service economy, don't disappoint the customer. And then the big final question, why get such an expensive car at all for rideshare? You're going to be putting miles on it fast and depreciating it fast. So just get any old good, reliable, high MPG car for less. And that is the question that only time will truly tell, but here is how I am approaching it. As a rideshare driver, you have 2 costs to worry about. Your fixed costs, like the car payment and insurance, and your cost per mile. You have to earn enough per mile to cover your fixed costs and still be worth your while. Now, as a rideshare drivers, we don't make that much per mile. Changing a little bit of the cost per mile or earnings per mile can have a huge difference on how soon you're going to cover your fixed costs. So, for example, in theory, if your costs per mile are negative because of repairs, servicing, fuel, etc., you're never going to cover your fixed costs, no matter how small. So the tactic I took with the Prius 7 years ago, and the tactic even more than I'm taking with the Tesla, is go with the smallest possible cost per mile, even if it means a larger fixed cost. Plus, with the EV, you get higher revenue per mile with the Buck-A-Ride EV bonus and being able to take Uber Green and Uber Comfort. Plus, when I was young, I looked at cars as to whether they would be a chick magnet. Now I look at cars and say, would they be a tip magnet? I hope this one will, but only time will tell. You're entitled to disagree in the comment section. Which brings me to this final item. I plan on creating new videos weekly and already have a substantial list of subjects on matters of EV, rideshare, and Los Angeles. And I obviously would like to get this channel monetized because, well, money. And that requires 1,000 subscribers and 400 watch hours. And when I reach that goal, I plan on a drawing worth $100 to thank those who helped me get there. So when I reach that goal, I will pick a random video along the way and then a random comment from a subscriber in that video. But to keep the bots and people not actually watching the video away, the comment must somehow include the secret word from the video itself. So subscribe, comment, and the secret word for this video is the name I gave my Model Y. Drive safe, keep it real, and maybe sometime I'll see you in my car. This is Danny Raym with EV Rideshare LA.